Namaste, viewers. Welcome to Jaipur Dialogue USA and Jaipur Dialogue. And as always, I request please like, subscribe, and support our channel. And your feedback is important for us as a learning experience. Thank you for joining us today. And I wanted to talk about a very simple matter. The world is in flame in Middle East, particularly. And there are indications that if war doesn't happen, or the way things are going around, we are looking at a potential of a major conflagration, a potential of a World War III. And there are a couple of reasons I say that. Because if you look at the trend of the protests that are happening, the incidents that are being created, marketed, and told to people, it is inflaming passions in many places. To begin with America itself, you have seen that the famous Antifa is raising its voices again and heads again, and they are calling about in protest in New York and other places, bring back Antifa-style attacks on the United States. American president is in Israel in a hot war zone. It is very rare that an American president is literally and physically and personally in the war zone in a country and its ally who is battling it out. That's a very, very significant gesture to the world around. Not only that, two big planes, Eisenhower and Gerald Ford, two aircraft carriers and a massive Navy power, which is said that the power of Gerald Ford and Eisenhower aircraft carriers is 95% of capacity of all the existing countries around that area. Think about it. Another tricky issue here. We all know that Hamas doesn't belong to any country. Hezbollah doesn't belong to any country, but they operate from a particular location. Hezbollah operates from Iran, Hamas operates from Gaza, and they are the military wing of the countries that control them. As a result of which, if Hezbollah gets into the land invasion being contemplated by Israel, they may start firing. They may get into war. And if that happens, United States will begin to bomb and send missiles to take out the Hezbollah locations. And that will be in Iran. Iran has already threatened Israel that if you were to launch a ground offensive, they will be forced to take action. And Hezbollah has declared an unprecedented day of anger, as part of which perhaps in Beirut and Lebanon, American embassies were set on fire. It's a dangerous scenario out there. Will it lead to a World War III? I do not know. I don't think anybody thinks about that. But President Xi and Putin are meeting in China at this very moment. So the world is under boil. The protests, support for Israel and against Israel, pro-Hamas, is going on all over. The academia in the United States is fully infiltrated by money power and muscle power of communists and Islamists. The result is, in the name of freedom, everybody is saying and doing what they want. It throws up a very important question. Who does the rule-based order apply to? Think about it for a moment. The rule-based order that the world has been talking about is applicable to those who follow the rules. But those who don't follow the rules, it doesn't apply to them. So, for example, in democracy, we talk about you are not proven guilty until you have, complete, proof given that, evidence given that. So, tragically, a hospital went up in flames in Gaza. More than 500 people are reportedly dead. Hamas and the American media, all and the Congress people from here began to condemn Israel straight away until evidence seems these days evidence gathering is also relatively easier. They found that it was a misfiring of Hamas missile, and probably there were arms and weapons stored or saved or hoarded or kept in the hospital premises, and they went up in flames. Now, where will be the concrete evidence of that? We do not know. Therefore, accusations fly, tempers rise, passions ignite, and the result is everybody is out to kill everybody else. You are seeing that the policemen and military are trying to contain mobs and masses of people who are protesting against that. It is going on all over the Middle East. And the question arises, to whose benefit it is all happening? So the question here is, it's applicable of rule that I was talking about. Refugees, take this as an issue. There are many, many points on which there is a conflagration happening. Refugee issue is one more, because only a few years ago, India was berated by the international community for having difficulty in accommodating Rohingyas. Indian journalists and Indian people were complaining that government of Prime Minister Modi was discriminating against Islam. Now look at what is happening here. King of Jordan, has openly declared, and I'm not saying this, it's there on the video, you have seen it, in which he has called that the refugees are not allowed to come into Egypt and Jordan. And he spoke on behalf of Egypt as well. And he said, that's the red line. And he also said, it's a local issue and it must be handled there. If that is the scenario, why are democracies being pilloried that they must accept all the refugees? The Scotland Prime Minister, who incidentally happens to be an Islamic person from Pakistan, he is telling UK to open the doors for refugees from Gaza. Even in the United States, there are some congressmen are saying, there is a New York State Congressman, Bowman, said, we should welcome all the Gaza refugees. As if American economy can handle import of hundreds and thousands of refugees in this country. Particularly under Biden administration, more than 100,000 have already been admitted as asylum seekers. So you are looking at an exploitation of a kind, of the democratic exploitation of democracies by people who do not believe in democracy. You see the contradiction that is happening here. It's a dangerously explosive situation. Some time ago, Germany, France, and England prohibited pro-anti-Semitic and pro-Hamas rallies in their area, but it didn't stop. You heard about how in the European qualifying football matches, an Islamic guy killed 2 Swedish people against the match in Brussels. The match had to be suspended. So you are looking at sporadic incidences and reaction of people taking advantage of the rule of law. Think about my freedom, you die. That's the kind of logic which is threatening the environment. There was a time in America when Reagan and Clinton, they had taken out Hezbollah positions in Iran. Nothing happened, they did it. But now it is also an American weakness, because wokeism and compromise for vote bank politics has weakened American democratic system, where because the Islamists and Muslims have a big vote bank, you are not able to play the truth, the rule of law. And that's a tricky situation. As an American, it is a very worrisome situation. Particularly, we know that pandering and appeasement of a vote bank politics is always injurious to the total health of the democracy or the people who do that. So we are caught in a bind. The democracies of the world are caught in a bind. Are we under threat? Yes. Are the democratic principles under threat? Yes. Does it need tightening of the belt and saying no when it demands no? Yes. And that's the issue that's critical at this point in time. Because President Biden, being in Israel, committing his unflinching support, saying that the hospital blast was not an act of Israeli government or its military, but evidence suggests it is by the other team, he said. These are important. And at the same time, Jordan and other countries refuse to meet President Biden. So you are looking at a scenario which is rife with enormous tensions. All it requires is a misfiring of something, just as the misfiring or whatever happened in the Gaza hospital led to the tragic death of so many people. A hospital being blown away in this point in time is a total disaster. It also brings about another aspect. Should religious places and hospitals be made as a storehouse of weaponry? Should civilians be used as a shield at the same time talking about civilian lives lost, whereas Hamas is taking out civilians, hostages, brutality and murder and rape? They know, Hamas knows, that in democracy, countries and governments spend a fortune of a time, life to rescue the hostage. They know this gameplay, they know this rule, and therefore they exploit that. The question is, how does the democratic world respond to this? That will be a conversation on another day. But for the moment, let's hold our breath with bated breath that nothing untoward happens. Because at this point in time, whenever anybody faces an existential threat, they fight back. And Israel is facing an existential threat given the, the conditions that are operating in the Middle East and given how various countries are mobilizing against it. There is hope, as I always say, that perhaps some people will awaken. Maybe Saudi Arabia, maybe UAE, maybe a couple of other countries. They will open up and they will begin to say, this far and no further. Thank you very much for watching us today. As I always say, Satyame Vijayate, truth must triumph, truth will triumph, and for truth to triumph, you and I have to defend and protect the truth. Thank you.